So last week I told my son Ian, who's back here, that the day I had a child, everything changed. He was intrigued by this. He wanted to know more. And I told him, I said, when I had a child, it's like suddenly the whole direction of my life changed, because it was no longer about me and my life and my priorities or my needs or my wants. Of course, all of those things would still be there. They just didn't matter nearly as much as Ian's or Maya's. He was fascinated by this idea. I told him, the second that you were born, I knew that if I had to choose between my life and yours, I wouldn't hesitate for a nanosecond. And you who are parents are nodding your heads saying, yeah, I know what you mean. I live for them now, no longer for myself. Beginning that day, everything changed. Baptism is like that. The baptism of Jesus Christ is this pivotal moment in Jesus' relationship, in Jesus' life, where everything changed. A change of priorities, a change of relationship, a change of direction. Beginning today, Jesus' baptism, the whole purpose of Jesus' life changes. No longer some anonymous carpenter's son in some backwater town of Galilee. No, from now on, beginning today, Jesus is going to preach and teach and heal and challenge and lift up and call. Everything changed beginning that day. The continuing Testament reading that we just heard today from Bono, the lead singer for the rock band U2, it kind of talks about how he felt at religious revivals. He came up for the altar call to give his life to Jesus. I've done that, and perhaps you have too. And it feels good to do that. He felt things shift, but it wasn't just a day. It wasn't just one day. No, Bono wrote that I'd always be the first up when there was an altar call, the come to Jesus moment, and I still am. If I was in a cafe right now, maybe Panera on Tuesday, if I was in a cafe right now and someone said, stand up if you're ready to give your life to Jesus, I'd be the first on my feet. I took Jesus with me everywhere, and I still do. I've never left Jesus out of the most banal or profane actions of my life. The call, you see, is not a once and done kind of a thing. No, that's how I feel. Jesus is the way. Jesus is my way, my truth, my life. And I hope that you share that feeling with me. And I never want to leave Jesus out of the most banal or profane moments of my life either. And I trust you're with me on this. Beginning today, we choose to practice Jesus' principles, Jesus' way of life, a way of forgiveness and reconciliation, a way of love of enemies, a way of the golden rule, treat others the way you want to be treated, to provide food and water to those who are malnourished and lack access to safe drinking water. For I was hungry and you gave me to eat, and I was thirsty and you gave me to drink. And we provide care for the sick and we welcome the stranger. All of those things that Jesus actually talked about and called us to do in Matthew chapter 25. Beginning today, that powerful Easter greeting, peace be with you. Jesus spoke those words to his disciples on the day of the resurrection. Peace be with you. Oh, I hope you feel that deep in your soul. Beginning today, we live by a singular commandment that we love one another. And Jesus' way becomes a guiding light, a guiding call for how we choose to live this day and every day. And then we mess it all up. And we fail. And we hurt people. And tomorrow comes, and then there's another altar call. And another dawn. And we stand up again to say, beginning today, I want to give my life to Jesus. And I guess that's why we come to church over and over, you know. The Buddhists call it practice instead of worship. I like that. I like that word. We're practicing here. I've gone over to the Paliyul Buddhist Temple on Streetsboro Road. Beautiful place. Maybe you've been there too. I go there to learn and listen and meditate. And on their website, they have their schedule of practices. I love that. You see, we practice the path of discipleship. Kind of like Dave Debeck still practices the organ and still practices the piano, even though he's so talented after all these years. We practice our discipleship. Or like a medical doctor who has a practice, in the sense that it's not merely about what they know in their head, what they learned in the university. It's about putting what they know into action for the benefit of other people, to help others live better. Practice. I guess that's why we gather here every Sunday. God is not some sycophant who craves our praise and adoration, is going to be angry if we're not saying enough nice things about God. Time and time again, Scripture shows that what God actually craves is our practice. It is justice I desire, not sacrifice. That is a verse of Scripture that Jesus quotes again and again, one of the most often repeated verses of Scripture by Jesus. In Matthew chapter 9, verse 13, Jesus says, "Go and learn what this means. It is mercy I desire, not sacrifice." And Jesus is saying that, quoting prophets like Amos and Samuel and Hosea and other prophets who have cited that same passage. In other words, like, knock it off with all the religiosity. What God really wants is mercy, compassion. I want justice, Jesus says. I want mercy, God says. Compassion, oceans of it. Justice like an ever-flowing stream, the prophet Amos says. So beginning today, let's practice walking with Jesus. Let's make that our resolution. New Year's resolutions, my goodness, we love to make them, and then they quickly disintegrate, right? We have the best of intentions, but oftentimes, I read an article about this, like the scientific basis of how to make New Year's resolutions that work. You got to have a plan, a specific, detailed plan. Not, I want to meditate more, but when are you going to meditate? Where are you going to meditate? What would be the consequences if you don't meditate? Give yourself incentive, right? So sometimes what we really need is a plan. Jesus heard his plan, his call in baptism, and Jesus recognizes the voice of the Eternal One who is still speaking. You are my beloved. My beloved. I hope you hear that. I hope you feel that. You are beloved, you matter, and in a special way, those who have been hurting, those who are feeling broken or have been treated unjustly, their lives matter, and we see that expressed powerfully in the Black Lives Matter movement. Moses showed us this in the book of Exodus when he brings liberation to the slaves in Egypt, and God is on the side of those who are experiencing injustice and oppression. You know what Jesus did right after he was baptized, right after he heard that word, beloved? He went off and he prayed, first of all. And then Luke's gospel records that he gave his first sermon. He went back up to Galilee, to Nazareth, and he gave that first sermon. We can read it in Luke chapter 4. And it said, God has sent me to what? To bring good news to the poor, to bring release to the captives, to bring sight to the blind and liberation to the oppressed. And that's how it all began. When my kids came along, everything changed. I lived for them, not for myself. If I had to choose between their life and mine, I would choose theirs, of course. And I redecide that every day. In Jesus' baptism, he hears a call and his life changes. And he lives for others now, not merely for himself. He redecides that day after day after day, even on the road to Calvary. We're practicing. So here's what you said this year about what you want to practice. I want to read through these. What do we want to focus on in 2023? Kindness, to act, meet new people, helping others, service to others, kind, thoughtful, generous, compassion for all, balance, learning, love and kindness, health, writing family history and connecting with my strengths, get more exercise, get to the Tuesday letter writing, focus on my family after losing my husband. Oh, thank you so much. I'll get to those in just a second. Focus on my family after losing my husband. Getting something accomplished. Connection, improving my attention span, organization, making better use of my time, more love and happiness in the moment, kindness to those closest to me, generosity of spirit, including on the hardest days, kindness, more love, more happiness. Focus on a higher power, be more focused in understanding health and family and making good choices for spiritual and physical health. Listen, caring more about others than myself. Happiness, peace, joy, love, compassion, breathe. New mutually supportive social connections. Live in the present, connect with nature, breathe, helping others. Peace, kindness, organization, participation. I want to focus on procrastinating less, starting tomorrow. to be in the present and renew my relationship with Christ. Justice, patience, growth, less anxiety, helping my mom. This is what you are practicing this year. This is the plan. This is our plan, based on Scripture, to live more deeply, more faithfully, to live for others, to hear that message, you are beloved. This is what abundant life looks like in the reign of God. Kind of like Isaiah's vision of a bruised reed. He will not break, but rather we are here to lift up one another and help him stand up straight and strong. Isaiah tells of that vision of justice. Someone who's bruised will not be broken, but held up. Someone whose light is growing dim will find it shining brightly again. That's what God's justice looks like. And that's why we practice. That's why we practice. I do believe, after all these, 61 years of practice, I'm a little bit more kind and accepting than I was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 40 years ago. I hope you are too. And that doesn't happen by accident. It takes practice. It takes time. It takes work. And so we gather. And we listen to the sacred texts and we tell the sacred stories and we engage in a sacred practice. And little by little we get closer to the mark from the day of baptism on. Jesus would have a new vision. Like Jesus, we march toward that vision beginning today.